So I'll call this January 13th, 2026 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mark, do you want to?
Sure. Yep. We've had a request from one of our petitioners to amend the agenda to move item 8 up to the top of our list of items due to some medical issues, and I would recommend the alteration to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve that change.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call, David?
Vicky Gushrowski,
Here.
Brian Cager,
Here.
Nate Laux,
Here.
Pete Saunders, Mark Danielson. 3 present.
Thank you. Approval of minutes for December 9th, 2025. You guys had a chance to review?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
And approval of minutes for December 18th, 2025, the special meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as well.
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, just go ahead and go to item 8.
Sure. Item number 8. The petitioner step forward, please.
Good evening, board members, and thanks for bumping me. I get steroid shots Friday morning, and I can't wait. David Amber's office is 601 State Street here in LaPorte, Indiana. As you might guess, I'm here representing James Schaffner before you today. Mr. Schaffner lives out on 300 adjacent to the Briarleaf Golf Course. He has approximately 13 acres. He is asking to build a side and rear privacy fence that would be wood or vinyl, would be 12 feet tall, and a front wrought iron fence like you see on estates, similar to what used to be in front of Bob Heiler's house on Boyd Boulevard. That one would be wrought iron. As far as the standards for evaluation, the fence would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community, because the fence will add privacy for not only Mr. Schaffner, but the adjoining property owners. Mr. Schaffner's biggest concern is as this property is developed for the R1D subdivision by Lennar, he has a swimming pool behind his home. He has a rather large pond. He doesn't want to be liable if some child comes across and winds up drowning in his pool or his pond. So he's trying to segregate himself from that liability. With regard to the second standard, the use or value of the area to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the adjoining property owners in our mind, their property value will increase because they will have added privacy for their subdivision and their new homes. The strict application of the terms of the ordinance will continue. The unusual and necessary hardship is applied to the property for which the variance is sought because the property is in what was previously a rural area. Again, will increase privacy and safety for adjoining owners. With the R1D behind him, it's an unduly it's burdensome for him to maintain the privacy in that large of a house that he built when it was a golf course. I mean, he had an excess of $1 million in that house, and he would like to maintain the privacy and the value of it. So with that, I'll shut up and answer any questions you may have.
Questions for us? Can we have questions now or no? Attorney Ambers, I have a question. What can what can a 12-foot fence do that an 8-foot fence or a 6-foot fence can't? You're claiming that you want this to keep kids from the property, and I don't know many children above 6 foot tall.
Well, they can climb over, they can stick a ladder up against it. If the taller he goes, the more secure his property is and the less likelihood that some child's going to come over. It's not going to be a cheap fence. You know how James builds.
Sure.
He builds everything nice. He just like as tall as possible, and if 12 won't work, maybe we go 10, but he wants to secure his property and protect the view from his residents looking out.
I still don't see why, though. I guess, forgive me. So if I hear you right, you're saying a 12-foot fence is going to prevent, maybe be more preventable for a child to get over,
Correct.
because
It's just harder for them to scale. Most kids can jump up, grab the top of an 8-foot fence, pull themselves up and over. A 10 or a 12, they wouldn't be able to do that.
okay.
Well, and also you talked about privacy, but looking at the map, I mean, his house is only really on 1/4 of that property. I mean, the remainder of that, I don't think having a 6-foot fence is gonna, I mean, as far as his privacy, like I said, the majority of that is open area, so I don't know what he would need it for as far as in that further section of his lot where there's really nothing there.
Well, if you recall the Lennar plan, most of that will contain housing. On the west side will be 2 retention areas.
Right,
And I'm not sure if they're gonna have walking trails in there or what.
right.
And then on the east side, there's going to be, if I remember right, that retention area is right down
Correct.
by the road, but there'll be houses up above.
Yeah.
And that did have, if I recall, a labeled walking area or a pavilion where you could overlook
Right.
the retention area. He's trying to, there will be people all up and down that property line. They just won't be in back by his house.
Right, but I think a 6.5-foot fence would still provide that privacy that he's looking for in that section of his lot. So, yeah, again, I
For
question.
the front, you're talking
I-
the front or the side?
I'm talking about the rear and the sides. So again, I do question the 6-foot, the 6-foot fence as far as why that's necessary,
No.
so.
Anything else? Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, I'll open it up for public comment. With no public comment, I'll close this portion. David?
Yeah, so item number 8, variance of development standards 26-03 petition is to allow 12-foot tall fence on the side and rear yard property lines and allow an 8-foot tall fence on the front yard property line. This property is located at 1797 West 300 North. Is approximately 13.07 acres. The current zoning is R1B, single-family residential district. There is a single-family dwelling and an accessory building on the property currently. Just kind of going through some of the surrounding properties. To the south, you have existing single-family acreages, or rural acreages in the, outside of the city limits. And then to the north, you have the vacant land, former golf course, to the north. And then to the west, you have just the same thing as the golf course, former golf course and vacant land. The petitioner is requesting a variance from the rear and front yard fence heights. The front yard is a maximum of 4.5 feet, and the backyard is a maximum of 6.5 feet. So the decision criteria of which you are to make decisions based on variance of development standards request, like this one, is 1, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The approval of the variance the approval of the requested variance to exceed the maximum fence height from 6.5 feet to 12 feet tall in the side and rear yard, and to exceed the maximum fence height from 4.5 feet to 8 feet tall in the front yard will be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the proposed fence height is not compatible with the existing and future character of the surrounding residential zoning districts around that site itself. 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The use and value of the residential zoning district adjacent to the property, or I should say residential zoning districts adjacent to the property, will be affected in a substantially adverse manner with the approval of the 12-foot tall fence in the rear and side yard and 8-foot tall fence in the front yard, because it will not be consistent with the surrounding residential properties, and it would creates a visual environment that is non-residential in character. Fences this height are not permitted in any zoning district inside the city of, in the city of LaPorte. 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance to limit the fence height in the rear and side yard to 6.5 feet tall and 4.5 feet tall in the front yard will not result in practical difficulties in the residential use of the subject property. The subject property may still be used in a manner consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance for personal use and storage. The petitioner has not demonstrated a practical difficulty for a fence height of 8 and 12 feet tall to separate from the adjacent permitted residential uses. So staff finds that the proposed fence height on the side, rear, and front yard exceeds the size of fences on similar properties in the surrounding area. Fences this height are not permitted in any zoning district inside the city limits of City of LaPorte. Staff recommends denial of variance of development standards petition 26-03, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Staff?
I have a question for you, David. So I think 12 foot is, it's almost double the height of what a regular fence would be. I get that Mr. Schaffner isn't thrilled about this subdivision. Is an 8-foot fence doable? Is that for the city a little more amenable?
An 8-foot tall would be permitted in light industrial districts. That's what's commonly seen in industrial districts.
I just think 12 foot is
Mentioning that.
comically large, yeah.
I can probably get him to work with 8, if you can go with 8, given it's not industrial, but given the fact that he's got 13-acre parcel, I think it makes sense and maybe pacifies both parties.
Yeah. So city's okay with if he would do an 8-foot?
What I would suggest, or what I know you can't yes or no this, but a 6, I guess, Vicky, a 6 on the front with an 8 on the side seems more amenable.
Not 6 in the front.
Well, the front would be wrought iron, you can see through it.
Yeah,
So you're saying 6 foot?
because he
wide.
wants an 8 in the front.
Well, but again, that's against the city as far as
Yeah,
front
okay,
being
so
4.5.
4.5 and then 8 on the side where neighbors are.
I don't, David doesn't seem to be okay with the 8-foot.
I wouldn't say that we are for it because it's not consistent with residential properties, of which this property is a residential property inside the city limits. And what is common for properties within the city limits is 6.5 feet tall as a standard. We have not exceeded that for residential properties.
Ever. We've never given a variance at all for a fence above 6.5 feet.
Not to my knowledge.
Wasn't that one on I Street by Beacon, isn't that more than 6.5? That lady was here a month or 2 ago. Didn't she get more than that, do you remember, Craig? I was thinking hers was taller because she was screening from Beacon.
I don't think that was an 8-foot.
No, it wasn't 8.
I think it was a standard 6,
It's-
yeah. Yeah, that wasn't an 8-foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm willing to say, if my fellow BZA members are, I am willing to negotiate with an 8-foot fence around the side parameter with a 4.5 on the front. but I understand that Mr. Schaffner is not incredibly happy with the development that's going on there. However, I do think the 12-foot fence is laughable, quite frankly, and to bring it to a 12-foot fence is silly.
Why in my presentation, I said we may need to go down from that. I'm not saying I don't disagree with you, Mr. Loves.
Any comments from you, Vicky, or no?
No, I get I get the 6.5. I would be okay too with the 8, 4.5 in the front.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a motion then.
Hold on, Nate.
Okay.
I believe maybe, if I may, Craig, on behalf of the city, do you have any input from,
I think that
as
I
far
don't
as?
see I don't see the hardship of the front, because the front is no different than any other residential situation. So I agree with you on the front. Perhaps some minor flexibility in terms of the height because of the size of the property, the nature of the property. I can't stand here and say I'm for it because it goes against the ordinance, but the board makes a decision. I think that that's a much fairer stance to take than what's been proposed originally, and we can go from there.
I think with the nature of this Lennar project and trying to, I know with the other residents in that neighborhood, the city is doing a great job trying to get as many wins as possible with all the residents there, and I think this is a fair solution to a situation that Mr. Schaffner has found himself in.
I think between the three of us, I would propose that there's like a 2/3 approach, going from 8 foot in the back side of the property down to the 4.5 foot up front, where not the entire sides are 8 foot, because that's a drastic drop off. I believe, my personal thought is that the city is trying to keep the idea that it's a compound out of the neighborhood. And if you have a 12-foot tall fence around any house, that looks like a compound. I would be in favor of saying tapering off the 8-foot fence, like 2/3 of the side yards, and then tapering down to 6 foot, 4.5 foot. Something that is more appealing for any of the neighboring houses and any of the neighboring proposed.
Well, how are you
possible.
how are you gonna define tapering? At what point in the lot are you, I mean, you know, then you're getting into all that,
Well,
so.
if you said 2/3, at 2/3, it has to start tapering
2/3
back.
8, and then 1/3 6, and then down to,
No, from, like, so they could
Like a chalk line.
possibly run 8 foot 2/3 of the way out, and then tapering down to the 4.5 foot at the front fence.
How about,
Maybe
That's
if I
just
could
a
clarify
proposal.
just a little bit. Sorry, Dave.
go ahead.
If I could clarify, so typically these rules are based on the front yard versus rear yard, side yard. So if anything, I think what you're suggesting, if I'm understanding correctly, is within the front yard, the portion of the lot into the front of the home up to the street, you'd like to see that where the reduction occurs from that point forward. And
so
then
that part would be the
the rear and
6.5.
side areas are where you might consider some flexibility, if I'm understanding that correctly?
That's fair enough, sure,
Okay.
certainly.
Yeah.
So
Particularly where there's gonna be residents.
Yeah.
That are gonna block some of his view and their view.
just to make sure I'm clear, here's what I'm picturing it. 8 foot across the back, 8 foot, 2/3 of the way up, whatever that measurement is, and then he tapers a straight line down to your 6, as if you imagine, say it was wood, and you literally put a chalk line on it at the 2/3 line down to the 6, snap it and cut it. Is that what you're
Even-
saying?
I think what he's suggesting is 8 foot in the rear and 8 foot on the side to the point of the front of the house. And then from that point, 6 feet forward.
Is that
up to
what
the
you're
front
saying?
line. I think that's what you're suggesting, if I
I-
understand correctly.
I would be fine personally with either or, but yes, something of that variation, yes, because if you consider the front of the house, right.
So I'll shut up and let you make your motion.
And
Yeah,
so
I-
forget the
I
2/3.
fear where you're at.
I
Okay.
think it's clearer to say the 8-foot could be to the front of the house, as in where the house front is, and from that point, 6 foot, 4.5 foot.
I don't think that's gonna be 2/3 to the way of the road. Are
So-
we abandoning that?
So obviously, we can't
Right,
Yeah,
see much on this small photo,
right.
but
yeah. I do like it if we're gonna say up, 8 foot up to the front of the house.
Gotta be something
Yeah,
tangible.
so I would go with that.
Do you want to make that motion then?
I will make that motion to do the 8 foot in the back, 8 foot up to the front of the house, 6 foot, and then the 4.5 in front.
Correct. I'll second that motion.
second.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for working with
Yeah.
us, folks. And thanks for bumping me up. I want to lay down.
Yeah, hope you feel better.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Now, back on schedule with item number 5. Operate, maintain a wireless telecommunication facility. Petitioner, step forward, please. Say your name, address, representation.
Good evening. My name is Brian Moore, and my address is 1553 West US Highway 20 in LaPorte, Indiana, and I am here on behalf of the Towers LLC.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So we're proposing a 175-foot telecommunications facility located at 1301 Pine Lake Avenue, just behind Drift, back tucked away in the trees back there. The reason that we're here today is because Verizon, who is going to be the carrier on that tower, is experiencing some coverage some capacity issues in and around Highway 39 and Pine Lake Avenue. And the only way to mitigate and alleviate those coverage issues is by constructing a new tower in that vicinity. We approached this project with the mindset of the least intrusive means. So we had a very small search ring, approximately a quarter of a mile from the intersection of McClung and Highway 39. And we were fortunate enough to identify a property that's zoned B2, which does permit wireless telecommunications facilities. And we designed it in such a way where we tucked it as far back into the trees as possible, where we can comply with all the setbacks stipulated in the code. But even before we got to that point, we explored co-locations of existing towers. So we looked at all the towers in the area, and given the objective of this particular site being that it's a capacity offload issue that Verizon's experiencing, none of those sites, the 13 sites or so, would work. Either they were way too far, or Verizon was already on them. So with that being said, that's why we're in this location now, and that's further evidenced by the coverage map that was submitted as part of the application. We are set back. Setbacks are important because it shows the distance from vantage points. We're set back approximately 700 feet north of Pine Lake, 400 feet west of Highway 39. Approximately a quarter of a mile from the Dodge dealership smoke shop that's out there. And again, it's shielded by some relatively large trees, so you won't see most of the tower. And it's about 200 feet behind the existing building on the lot. There's no lighting involved on this particular cell site. It's designed, it has a fall zone where it's designed, worst case scenario, if it were to fall, it would break off 100 feet, so it would fall squarely within its lease area, or worst case scenario, on the property. Yeah, here to answer any questions you may have.
On that property, I'm sorry, what is that existing building? I'm trying to think what that is. What's that building on there?
I don't know, I almost want to say it's somewhat vacant. I don't know the plans of Matt Matt, the owner of the parcel, MTC Investments. I don't know his plans for that building. It almost looks like a shop type of thing. There's,
Oh, okay. Oh, is that with the dealership?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So Matt, who owns the dealership, owns the majority of those parcels there. So it's on the farthest parcel to the north. And there is a building there, but I don't know what's in it. It's a single-story structure that looks
Okay.
vacant.
And also, I think I saw maybe later, but at the time, did you get the determination for no hazard from the FAA?
Yeah, I forwarded the determination to
Okay.
staff, so they have that.
Okay,
So the FAA has signed off on this,
Yeah.
yep, you're good with all the regulations, you're just waiting for us, essentially.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. At this point, I'll open it up for public comment. Any public comment? I'll close public comment. My personal opinion is I've been with Verizon for 27 years or something. Johnson Road in Seavers there is a horrible spot.
Yeah, I know. Every time I go to the bottle shop, I drop calls.
And as a side note, if you guys could go just north, or no, just slightly north of John Kine Park, that's another dead area.
Okay, yeah, we'll take that
in
into
mind.
consideration. But yeah, I totally agree. It's going to help all the travelers in and around that area, businesses, emergency services. You'll see a substantial uptick in coverage in that area.
Certainly. David?
Yeah, so item number 5, special exception use 25-04 petition is to construct, operate, and maintain a wireless telecommunication facility. This property is roughly located at 1301 Pine Lake Avenue, and just behind that, kind of tucked back in the woods, closer to what is the edge of Pine Lake Cemetery to the north. There is no residential properties that surround the site itself. Just wanted to mention that for the record, because just going through some of there are additional use regulations for a wireless telecommunications facility, of which I have included both the analysis that was provided by the applicant, as well as the kind of staff analysis and just the requirements itself of the application. I'm not going to go through all of those. The applicant did provide notice, minimum of at least 60 days to both the LaPorte Airport and the Michigan City Airport, giving written notice as required by the zoning ordinance for a new wireless telecommunication tower, as well as also in your packet was the recently revised determination of no hazard letter that was issued by the FAA that was just forwarded over actually this morning, or yesterday for that matter, which is a requirement of the new wireless communications tower, that no lights are required for the height of the tower. And then, as well as, there are design standards that are listed as well there for your review, and looking at those, and those pertain to fencing, security fencing, the structures, appurtenances that are on the site at the base of the tower, as well as pertaining to the co-location of other carriers on the tower itself is a requirement. Height requirement, it's not taller than, it's 175 feet tall, as was mentioned before. And so the next part, I'm just going to briefly touch on the decision criteria for special exception uses. One, that the general welfare of the proposal will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. This proposed telecommunications facility will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community because the surrounding area is primarily commercial use. The proposed cell tower and associated maintenance building will be designed, constructed, and maintained in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations that are required. 2, that the surrounding property, the special exception use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. The establishment of the special exception use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. The special exception use to allow the telecommunications facility will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood because of the majority of the surrounding area are commercial businesses. The establishment of this proposed use will not impair the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for the uses permitted in the B2 General Commercial District because it will improve the signal for businesses and residential properties within the surrounding area. 3, hazard, the special exception shall not be hazardous to the adjacent property or involve uses, activities, materials, or equipment which will be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of persons or property. This proposed use does not involve any uses, activities, materials, or equipment that will be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of persons or property in the surrounding area, as was described in the narrative and documentation that addresses those specific additional use requirements for a new cell tower, basically. 4, public facilities and services. The use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage structures, water and sewage facilities, refuge disposal, and schools. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. This proposed facility, as was mentioned, will be accessed from an existing extension of the driveway of 1301 Pine Lake Avenue, which is directly accessible to Pine Lake Avenue itself. 5, that the development of the property will be consistent with the intent of the development requirements established by this ordinance for similar uses. The development will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to be compatible with and not significantly alter the existing or intended character of the general vicinity based upon the county comprehensive land development plan. The development of this property is consistent with the development requirements established by the ordinance for similar telecommunications facilities in other areas as designed for a specific purpose to be narrow and not obtrusive to external properties outside of that, so not overly, not wide. It's just one singular pole itself. 6, ordinance intent granting the special exception use will not be contrary to the general purposes served by this ordinance and will not permanently injure or other property or uses in the same zoning district and vicinity. The approval of this special exception use will not be contrary to the general purposes served by the ordinance and will not permanently injure other property or uses in the B2 General Commercial District and the immediate vicinity. As was mentioned, the primarily commercial businesses and a cemetery to the immediate north of the proposed site for the cell tower. 7, county land development plan. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the zoning district in which it is located and the recommendations of the countywide land development plan. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the B2 General Commercial Zoning District in which it is located and goals and policies of the countywide land development plan. And the second part of that is just that there are use regulations, which I've already mentioned. So staff finds that the approval of the special exception use petition to allow construction, operation, and maintenance of the telecommunications facility is consistent with the countywide land development plan and the general character of the surrounding commercial retail stores, restaurants, office buildings, and residential dwellings in the surrounding area. So staff recommends approval of special exception use 25-04, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No, I think it's important to have good telecommunication service around the city, and this makes sense to me. So, and I'm sure the Ficuses will be happy to actually have some cell phone coverage around their neighborhood. So I will make a motion to approve this request.
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Congrats.
Thank you, sir. Item number 6, development standards allow 5 new industrial buildings to exceed the maximum building height from 45 feet and 60 feet to 65 feet.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening.
I have a handout.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Todd Leith. I'm an attorney with offices in Valparaiso at 2700 Valparaiso Street. I'm appearing today to assist the petitioner, excuse me, in this matter, Laporte One LLC, which is a special purpose entity created by two developers in collaboration to develop this site, which is approximately 110 acres. It's located in the Thomas Rose Industrial Park, and the proposed use of the property is for a data center. The petitioner is a sophisticated data center developer, both of them. This is not their first rodeo. It's not their first data center project, even in Northwest Indiana. The handout that I've provided to you has a couple of slides that I wanted to walk through. The first one is the zone map. The 110 acres within the industrial park has split zoning. The majority of it is M1 light industrial district, and then there's a southern piece that is M2 heavy industrial, and that is depicted on the exhibit, the first page after the index. We're here seeking a height variance for the 5 buildings that we're proposing to be located on this site. This is not a use variance. The use that we're proposing, the data center use, is an allowable or permitted use under both the M1 and the M2 district. We're here simply to seek a height variance to allow those 5 buildings to be 65 feet in height. The M1 district has a height limit of 45 feet, and the M2 has a height district, a restriction rather, of 60 feet. So only 5 feet more in that portion of the property. The height of buildings, in my opinion, and I've done zoning work for a number of years, is related to setbacks. In other words, if a building is on the setback line and is the proper height, it has a certain scale or visibility. If it is further set back, it appears to be smaller from that same property line or the street or the right-of-way. In our scenario, you'll see that our setbacks are well enhanced. The code setbacks for front along County Road 200 North is 30 feet in that M1 district. We're showing on slide 2, the next slide over, a setback of over 600 feet, 400 feet from that Schwartzman parcel, the 5-acre parcel that is kind of lies between the majority of the buildings and the county road. We're going to talk a little bit more about his parcel. That's approximately 13 times the code setback. So my suggestion to you is that the further back that the building goes, the more in scale it appears. And so we believe that our 20-foot variance for that M1 district, if you set it back 13 times or 400 feet over a football field, including the end zones, it brings it more in scale. Why do we need 65 feet? These data center buildings, as you probably or may have heard and read, have a need to address the generation of heat. And the 65-foot building is only 2 stories. And what that provides for is the ability for the design to air cool the generation, the servers within those buildings. And the taller structures are needed for that in order to allow for the movement of air. Our side setbacks to the east is 370 feet, and that's to farmland and is outside of the industrial park. To the west, it's 250 feet on our concept plan, and that's to already developed industrial property located within the industrial park. To the south, we're showing, again, on our concept plan, approximately 275 feet. This is not the tallest structure in the Thomas Rose Industrial Park. We looked at some of the existing buildings, none of which exceed the, I think there's one that's 47 feet, but there is one that's 74 feet tall, at least a portion of it. That's the Keystone Automotive Building, has a portion of their building is 74 feet tall. We don't think it's out of place in an industrial park with all of these setbacks. The last handout is a blow-up, if you will, of our concept plan. We have, I think, a significant property owner that's impacted by this development. We're on basically two sides of his property, the Schwartzman property, and the gentleman, the property owner, did submit some questions for us, and I'll be happy to answer those. But I did want to address his concerns because, again, I think he's the most impacted. So I kind of zoomed in on our concept plan, and that's what I've shown you there. And as you can see, 400-foot setback from his property, which includes buffering, landscaping, and a detention pond. Again, over a football field in distance. So I think with that setback, we've tried to address the concern that he might have with regard to our impact, whether it be a data center or a manufacturing facility, whether it be 45 feet or 65 feet. I think the impact is going to be addressed because of our setbacks, because of our buffering. One of his concerns or questions that he submitted was where is the primary access? And again, the concept plan and the Zoom section shows the entrance to the data center once it's completely built out to be from County Road 200 North. You also probably know that data centers are light in traffic. We don't have shift change with hundreds of employees that you would see potentially on 110 acres. There are employees. We don't know how many employees. That can range from 15 to 40 employees per building. It depends on the tenant and how they choose to man and staff their data center. Construction logistics were a lot of his other questions. We simply don't know what that is. We're at the very preliminary stage of this project. This is the first step. There are many other steps to go, and once we know what our game plan is, what our direction is, hopefully with your variance, then Kimley Horn, the engineering design professionals, will be turned loose to design the data center and create all of those details, and then that has to go through your review process with the city staff, engineering, all of those things, stormwater. Those detention ponds are pretty blue pictures right now. We'll have to design those. They may be bigger, they may be smaller, but we know in what area they'll be. Topography tells us that. The concept plan is just that. It's what we think it will be. But again, the engineering will dictate exactly how it's all laid out. And We've got a representative from Kimley Horn, Andy Deenan is here. Kyle DeLuna from the ownership is here, and the three of us are happy to answer your questions or those that might come from the public hearing. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Staff, any questions right now?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I'll open it up for public comment. I do have 3 sheets that were turned in. If Jerry would like to step forward?
Jerry? Jerry, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jerry, when you get up here, if you can give your name and your address, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Swarsman. I own the property at 102 East 200 North, also known as Severs Road, located directly north of the proposed industrial buildings. My property is called Six Pastures. I'm speaking to the distance, this diagram that shows 100 feet separating the building from my property line. I bought my property line in August 2020 after several visits to the area. Frankly, I was overwhelmed by the natural beauty of the property, the presence of wildlife, and the apparent respect that the residents of the area had for the surrounding land. But soon after I started working on my property, I realized that I didn't really own it in the conventional sense. Rather, I was only a caretaker, responsible for the buildings and land until they would pass on to another caretaker after me in hopefully even better condition than when I bought it. So I set about making repairs and improvements, including bringing back horses to add to the land's serenity. In fact, we had a young colt born on the property last winter. I know that there are people that look at this proposed development as progress. They see jobs and more tax revenue, but all this comes at a great cost. I look at the proposed development with sadness because it will bring the ugliness of the large industrial buildings and warehouses to this adjacent land. These developments create ugly scars on the land and replace LaPorte's natural beauty with concrete and steel. Prime evidence of that is already happening about 3/4 of a mile east of my property, where a pristine wooded area was cleared out for block-style housing units that are now being constructed. Let me remind everyone, when you lose the gift of nature's beauty in this way, you don't get it back. I don't know the reason why the 45-foot height limitation was imposed on the area where the industrial plants are planned. But I'd like to think that the people involved at that time felt what I am feeling now. That is, that this industrial plant construction needs to be kept out of eyesight for the residents and those who pass by as much as possible, so that LaPorte's natural beauty can be preserved as much as possible. So today and going forward, ladies and gentlemen, you can make a difference. By rejecting this zoning appeal, you can lower the presence of these new structures and reduce the visible damage to our community that they will create. I urge you to vote no.
Thank you. And you've done a great job with your property. I've seen it.
Bert Cook?
Good evening to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Bert Cook, Executive Director of the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership. Want to touch on a few things that were mentioned before and maybe a couple different as well. Appreciate your consideration of the height variance tonight. We've been working with what we call Project Cardinal for a little over a year on trying to determine what might be the best site for our community. I think as we talk about data centers, I think we've all seen the discussion that has occurred in the public on those. I hear a lot of the things that rise to the top that we hear most often are concerns that the public has on electricity usage, on water, and location. As Todd mentioned, we're at the very beginning of this project, and there are a ton of other steps that have to occur in order for us to better comment on the utility side of things. But I think we can comment on the location part in confidence here this evening. So the Thomas Rose Industrial Park is one of the areas of the city that I am most proud of. I've been here for almost 20 years, and that industrial park has built out significantly in that time. We have some of our largest employers in that area, and I think the Thomas Rose Industrial Park, by the vast majority of people's opinion, would be the exact right location we would want developments such as this. Much of the public outcry you see on other projects has to do with placing developments like this in areas that maybe are not as ready for that development, or are not as appropriate. On top of that, when we built out the second phase of the expansion of the Thomas Rose Industrial Park in 2015, the department heads for the city did a wonderful job of readying this area for future development. I'm not the right person to comment on it. I know we have department heads here that can do a better job, but the utility infrastructure that we put in place was put in place to ready this area for future industrial development. Very familiar with the Whirlpool building, as that has been a mainstay in our community for many years. It's a 610,000 square foot building. The high bay area is 74 feet tall. I think some of you may have even been in there. I've been in there numerous times in my own. I do not think it stands out as unique in that area at all. To give you a frame of reference on size of buildings, because we talk about the size often as if it's something that everybody has a framework for, but the two new spec buildings that were built in that area are both 150,000 square feet. So very similar to the size of the buildings that are represented on that concept plan in front of you. Just to give you at least an idea of the size. Again, always understand there are multiple perspectives on any project. I feel like a broken record at times because I get in front of you guys and the Plan Commission, the City Council, and unfortunately I say something like, well, I wish everyone was fully supportive of every project, but that just doesn't happen. That's not the reality of the situation. However, in this instance, give a lot of credit to the development team that is pushing this project forward because they've been very mindful. I know they are eager to invest in the city of LaPorte, and we're eager as well, but looked at a lot of different sites, and they took a lot of our feedback into account of trying to find the most appropriate place to build this. I know you'll talk about, again, I think easily our conversations can spill over into site discussion and site planning and the effects of all of those things, and those are all very important topics at the appropriate time. But I know tonight we're talking specifically about the height variance, which, again, my own opinion, but is very minor in the grand scheme of things when you look at the area that this is to be built in. Appreciate your consideration, strongly encourage you to support their variance request. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you, Bert.
And I appreciate the reminder of we're not voting on what the facilities are, we're voting just on the size and the height. So I think that's important to remember, so thank you.
And Vicki, I'm also, I wouldn't discount, those are all very important topics that will be discussed at the appropriate times.
Thank you. The last sheet I have is Mayor Tom Derby.
I'll be brief. Tom Dermody, 1658 South Willow Bend Drive. Just to say thank you for your review of this. And obviously we're excited. You know, when people talk about development, they say, boy, what a great place to put is in the industrial park. Guess what? This is going into the industrial park. The variance is being asked. We already have buildings that have exceeded and have been I think close to 100 foot, and all we say is I am very supportive, our administration is supportive of this change, and I think to Ms. Kraszowski's point, this is just a reminder there'll be plenty of opportunity to talk about electricity, water, and about this project by itself. Your only vote tonight is to review the height of the project. Not whether it's a good, bad, indifferent project, and I would ask for your support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, my name is Alicia Ferenic, and I live at 1306 Carriage Court, Nibie Homes. I was not prepared to speak tonight. I did not know that this requested variance had to do with the data center. I understand it's not about the use. It is about the variance itself. We're going from 65, or from 45 to a 65 is the request here. What I understand after hearing some of that was part of the parcel is zoned M1, which would be light industrial, and the other part of the parcel is zoned M2. And so I'm just wondering if that shift in variance is also that shift in what goes from light industrial to heavy industrial, and I think that makes a big impact going forward, and what part of the property and everything. Obviously, I'm very glad it's still in the early preliminary stages, so we can do more research and further that. But I do believe, that quite possibly might be one of the differences in what differentiates the M1 and the M2 and the light zoning and the heavy zoning. So I am not in favor of approving the variance request, because like I said, it kind of is that gray area with M1 and M2 and ultimately what the end project will be. So I think it's important to keep separated there. Where are our standards? Are we mixing them here? And where it involves with the M2 and the M1 and the differentials there, because we have a pretty vague code system when it comes to data centers and what they're included. And from what I understand with everything going on with our governor and projects that the Indiana Economic Development Commission is pushing is not normal data centers, it's AI geared data centers, so that changes dynamics as well. And I understand that that's not the variance we're talking about. It's about the height limit there, but I think that makes a big impact as far as being the variable of what defines M1 zoning versus M2 and the standards of the difference of what should be built on both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Other public comment?
Can you give your name and your address, please?
My name is William Pierce. The address of that property is close adjacent to the Rose Park. It's vacant farmland. My question is, there's too many unanswered questions here. They just want to approve the raising the height of the buildings, but yet then we don't know what else is going to happen after that. I want to know what's going to happen to my property value. Whatever they put in there, is that going to increase it, decrease it? What is it?
Only thing-
There's way too many unanswered questions here just to approve going to 65 feet.
The only thing we're voting on tonight is the height change.
If
So-
that's, I do not approve of that, period.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? So at this point, I'll close public comment.
My opportunity, thank you. Want to make a couple comments or observations, perhaps. With regard to the beauty, the land, the height, allowing the height at 2 stories or 65 feet allows us to have more data center capacity on the 110 acres. If you say no to the height, the data center is a 1-story building, and we have half the capacity on 110 acres, which means that when the system, when the network, when the next data center developer needs more capacity, he has to find another 110 acres. So I suggest to you that allowing the height variance is actually limiting the footprint of industrial development, certainly this data center development, because we would need more land quicker if you deny the variance. The variance, again, the practical difficulty is we need to cool the capacity, the servers. The industrial park is the place for this kind of development, in my opinion, and I think in the city's opinion. I've been involved in, I believe this is the 5th site in Northwest Indiana for a proposed data center, not all of which have been successful. I can tell you at every one of them, they said to me and my client, go put it in an industrial park. Well, here we are. We have an industrial park now. And I think this is the appropriate place. Certainly, we're on the edge of the industrial park. We have some issues with regard to that, and we've addressed those with the enhanced setbacks significantly, 13 times your code. The industrial park, without any variances, could have a 45-foot tall industrial building 30 feet from the property lines. And we're providing 400-foot setbacks. And that allows us, I think, the ability to buffer significantly all properties around us. There was a suggestion that there were too many unanswered questions, but we've talked about the fact that the only question is the height of the building. All of those other questions are unanswered, but that's our responsibility to come up with all of the engineering plans and submit those through, just like any other project, whether it complies with the height or whether it does not. You have stormwater to be concerned with. You have access to be concerned with. You have all of those details of your zoning ordinance, building codes, and so forth. And that's what we have engineers at the ready here to start designing this site. I think that I've tried to answer the questions that came up through the public hearing, and we're happy to answer any of your questions and look forward to your favorable action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I don't. Nope.
You want to make them?
David Dustin.
David, sorry.
So item number 6, variance of development standards 26-01 petition is to allow 5 new industrial buildings to exceed the maximum building height from 45 feet and 60 feet to 65 feet total area. This property is located on approximately, total acreage is about 92.06 acres. I think that might be a little bit more than that because there's another parcel there, because there's 2 different parcels of zoning. And so there are 3 parcels that they wish to exceed the maximum building height to 65 feet that are both zoned M1 light industrial and M2 light industrial, with M2 being closer to the south or the railroad tracks that cut through the community there. This property, and so, let me back up here a second. So you are to take into account the decision criteria, which I have mentioned before, and I'll briefly mention them again. 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The approval of the requested variance to exceed the maximum building height from 45 feet and 60 feet to 65 feet will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, because there are existing buildings, and I'm looking at the building within the Thomas Rose Industrial. Wish I could show that. It shows what was mentioned was the 75-foot tall building directly from 200 North that exceed the 65 feet tall that the petitioner is requesting within the adjacent Thomas Rose Industrial Park area. The proposed 65-foot building heights are compatible with the surrounding buildings on land in the immediate vicinity. 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The use and value of the Thomas Rose Industrial Park area adjacent to the property and residential properties will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because there are other buildings in the surrounding area that are similar to the requested variance to increase the maximum building height to 65 feet. The majority of land uses in the surrounding area are manufacturing and warehouse businesses that all have building heights that exceed that of the M1 and M2 zoning districts. 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance to limit the maximum building height to 45 feet and 60 feet will result in practical difficulties in the use of the subject property because there are other similar buildings on land in the M1 and M2 zoning districts that exceed the maximum building height in the surrounding area. So staff does find that the proposed building height is compatible with the surrounding property's building sizes and conforms to the goals and policies of the countywide land development plan. So staff recommends approval of variance of development standards petition 26-01, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any questions for David? You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I think this is obviously going to be an ongoing conversation. Again, as a reminder, this is just a height variance. For those that might be concerned, as the mayor talked about, with all the details that comes with data centers, it's a hot topic, I understand, but it's also a topic that the President of the United States has encouraged us to have and continues to encourage the build out of data centers, and the governor as well. And I say this as people are streaming right now on YouTube and Facebook, and as I will probably stream lots of reels on Instagram later, and I have all of my children's pictures on an iCloud and things like that. That data is important in data centers, but it is important for a community to talk about how it should get built, where it should get built, and all these kind of things. I like the idea and what you said about going up instead of going out. I think we certainly want to protect as much of our property as possible, and so if we can use 100 and some acres instead of 200 and some acres,
Precisely.
that is certainly a good use of that. So with that, I will make a motion to approve your variance, your height variance for these buildings.
And I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Very good. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Item number 7, will the petitioner step forward, please?
Hi there, my name is Bruce Young, Bruce Build Construction, 106 Caroline Drive, Walkerton, Indiana.
Welcome, Bruce. Apparently these guys weren't here to hear you. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So I'm here today representing the petitioner, Mark and Nancy Parkman at 410 Closser Avenue. What we're looking for in the variance is to exceed your maximum square footage. I think the maximum right now is 720. We would like to do 1,448. Or 1,488, I'm sorry. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have on that.
Thank you.
Real quick, why?
So if you're familiar with the property, I don't know if you had a chance to drive by and take a look at it. On 410 Closser, the house sits up on the hill, and there's a very long walk down the hill to, I think, is it Orchard Boulevard, which is that access road to the front on the lake there. So they obviously own from 410 Closser down there to the lake frontage. The addition on the garage is the existing garage right now is 24 foot wide by 30 foot deep. They have plenty of room in the back. They would like to add an 8-foot addition to the back. And then the remaining square footage that we're asking for is to extend the roof out over the driveway, which is about half the distance is what we're looking for additional shade. They have an 85-year-old mother that is still with them that they're very happy to entertain. It's gonna create more shade for them, and I'm sure they're gonna spend most of their time in the summers is down below by the lake.
So your addition is in the back again, how big is the addition in the back?
8-foot extension on the 24-foot wide
Yep,
garage.
and then the rest in the front is just a
Is just an
rough line.
extension of the roof, which is 24 foot by 24 foot.
Thank you, okay.
Any other questions for petitioner?
No.
At this point, I'll open it up for public comment. Any public comment? I'll close public comment. David, like, give us staff review?
Yeah, so item number 7, variance of development standards 26-02 petition is to exceed the maximum accessory building areas requesting 1,488 square feet. It's located at 410 Closser Avenue. The total size of the property is about 0.57 acres. There is an existing single-family dwelling on the property and a detached garage that's 24 by 30 or about 720 square feet. The zoning ordinance currently requires a variance for anything over and above total accessory building area over 721 square feet. So a shed, a detached garage, and like a pergola structure. The petitioner proposes, you include in your packet, is the open-sided shelter on the front of the garage or the lake side of the property on Lakeside. And then on the back of the building behind it, he plans the 8-foot addition, enclosed addition on the back. And so staff has been to the property and inspected the site. Show you the photo, but I'm sure you've seen the property itself. Just going through the decision criteria, of which there are 3, that the approval of, will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The approval of this requested variance to allow the expansion of the existing detached garage for personal use will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and morals, and general welfare of the community because there are other similar accessory buildings along the south shore of Pine Lake in the surrounding area. The petitioner is requesting approval to construct the covered patio, open-sided covered patio in front garage and small enclosed building addition to the existing detached garage for summertime usage. 2, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner with the approval of the requested variance to expand the building footprint of the existing detached accessory building because it will be used for personal use and enjoyment, similar to the other accessory buildings in the immediate vicinity. The small enclosed building addition and open-sided shelter will not negatively impact the use and enjoyment of other neighboring properties as well as any particular because we are in the waterfront view protection overlay district, won't impact the view because the property is set within, and it doesn't impact the side setback property lines for the building itself. 3, that the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance to limit the size of the existing detached accessory building to 721 square feet on an approximately half-acre property will result in practical difficulties in the use of a lakefront property for personal use because the size of the property allows for a larger accessory building while also complying with the minimum building setbacks as specified in the waterfront view protection overlay district. So staff does find that the proposed accessory building size is compatible with the surrounding property's total accessory building sizes and conforms to the goals and policies of the countywide land development plan. So staff recommends approval of variance of development standards petition 26-02, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, David. Any questions?
No.
Do we have anybody remote?
No. You have any questions? I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance of development standards for 26-02.
I'm looking at it right here, it makes sense to me. Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
Go IU.
as a Notre Dame fan, I rescind my,
Item number 9 is
already
old
did that
business.
one. Yeah, old business.
No.
First meeting of the year.
Okay. Item number 10 is new business and election.
Without the people?
Oh, as far as positions,
As far as position, yes.
I make a motion, we leave as is.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Other business?
Nope.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.